Story 1. Humans Rum. I knelt down in dismay next to Click's unconscious body sprawled haphazardly across the dingy barroom floor. My friend lay motionless except for the slight rise and fall of his narrow chest as he struggled to breathe. His normally bright emerald green eyes were clamped shut, and his twin eye stalks wilted limply to the side rather than waving enthusiastically about as they did just minutes before. I cradled Click's head in my lap, gently caressing his smooth, annulated skin. "Come on, Click, please wake up," I pleaded desperately, but there was no response except for a faint gurgling sound. All 6 of Click's stubby legs were curled inward at odd angles like those of a dead insect. I had to fight back the urge to weep at the pitiful sight. Just moments earlier, the bar had been raucous with laughter and loud conversation as patrons of all species socialized over drinks. Click and I had been eagerly awaiting our next round of Cavis juice along with several other members of my species, the diminutive Zenli. The sweet neon blue cocktail was a particular favorite of ours, sending a pleasant tingle through one's antenna with each sip. Click had noticed a lone human seated at the far end of the bar, nursing a glass of shimmering amber liquid. In his usual outgoing and amicable manner, Click had invited the imposing alien to join our group for a drink. But the steely-eyed human had tersely declined before downing the remaining contents of his glass in one long swallow. Never one to take no for an answer, Click had boldly scuttled over and snatched the human's strange-smelling drink right off the bar before he could stop him. We Zenli had never encountered humans before, but it was customary to share beverages as a gesture of interspecies goodwill. Without hesitation, Click raised the glass to his mouth and took a hefty gulp. Moments later, he was gagging and violently choking. His gangly eye stalks shot straight up in alarm before collapsing as Click crashed to the floor unconscious. "You've poisoned him," I accusingly cried out to the human, who observed the scene with an air of cold indifference. Around us, the other patrons turned to stare, murmuring anxiously amongst themselves. Calmly taking back his glass, the imposing human casually drained the remaining liquid before replying in flawless Zenla. "Your drinks do little for me, but it seems mine are too potent for your kind." He spoke slowly with a strange accent, almost savoring each word. As the human gradually rose from his seat, he seemed to tower over me, well over 6 feet tall compared to the average Zenli height of 3 feet. I instinctively shrank back under his imposing gaze, feeling as helpless as an insect. With a subtle sneer that revealed rows of tiny, straight white teeth, the intimidating human continued, "Consider this your first and only warning. We humans do not simply share our liquor with every pathetic, overeager alien that asks." He nudged Click with the toe of his heavy black boot before adding, "Know your place, and do not dare approach our kind again, unless you desire an even worse fate than your foolish friend here." Tossing a strange paper currency note onto the counter, the human turned and strode casually toward the exit. The other customers parted quickly with their heads down, not daring to meet his piercing blue-eyed stare. Pausing at the doorway, he looked back directly at me, his expression hard and humorless. "Tell others to keep their distance if they wish to remain conscious. Our drinks are lethal to undersized weaklings like you." With those ominous parting words still echoing in my head, the intimidating human departed into the neon-lit night. I clutched Click tightly, willing him to open his eyes and be all right, but he remained disturbingly still except for his labored breathing. For 10 agonizing minutes I held Click's limp body, desperately willing him to open his eyes. At last, his eyelids fluttered and his twin eye stalks twitched faintly. "Click, can you hear me?" I cried. With a soft groan, Click finally regained consciousness. His emerald eyes blinked slowly as they came back into focus. "Are you all right? How do you feel?" I asked worriedly. I feel wonderful, Click replied. I was transported to the most magical place. I stared at him, confused. Moments ago he was choking and unconscious. Now he sounded positively thrilled. When I drank that human's liquor, my mind floated away to a mystical realm, Click explained eagerly. I was surrounded by gorgeous maidens from across the galaxy. There were blue-skinned Twillians, golden-haired Veloxians, a breathtaking Panetian dancer. He trailed off, gazing into the distance with a blissful smile. The other bar patrons murmured to each other in surprise. It was the most beautiful experience of my life, Click declared. The colors were so vibrant and everything felt warm and fuzzy. The maidens kept refilling my glass with the human's liquid and encouraging me to drink more. He staggered slightly as I helped him up off the floor. I shook my head in astonishment. Somehow, the toxic drink that had poisoned Click initially now filled him with euphoria. Click turned to the bar excitedly. "Human, please, I must have more of your magic elixir. I've never felt such ecstasy." But the human was already gone. Click's chance at reliving his blissful vision had vanished. Without hesitation, Click raised the glass to his mouth and took a hefty gulp. Moments later, he was gagging and violently choking. His gangly eye stalk shot straight up in alarm before collapsing as Click crashed to the floor unconscious. "You've poisoned him," I accusingly cried out to the human, who observed the scene with an air of cold indifference. Around us, the other patrons turned to stare, murmuring anxiously amongst themselves. Calmly taking back his glass, the imposing human casually drained the remaining liquid before replying in flawless Zenla. "Your drinks do little for me, but it seems mine are too potent for your kind." He spoke slowly with a strange accent, almost savoring each word. As the human gradually rose from his seat, he seemed to tower over me, well over 6 feet tall compared to the average Zenli height of 3 feet. I instinctively shrank back under his imposing gaze, feeling as helpless as an insect. With a subtle sneer that revealed rows of tiny, straight white teeth, the intimidating human continued, "Consider this your first and only warning. We humans do not simply share our liquor with every pathetic, overeager alien that asks." He nudged Click with the toe of his heavy black boot before adding, "Know your place, and do not dare approach our kind again unless you desire an even worse fate than your foolish friend here." Tossing a strange paper currency note onto the counter, the human turned and strode casually toward the exit. The other customers parted quickly with their heads down, not daring to meet his piercing blue-eyed stare. Story 2. GTA 5? I love it. Zorbgax sighed as he stepped onto the bridge of his intergalactic star cruiser, the SSS Invincible. As captain of the ship, he took his duties seriously, but after centuries of space travel, even an adventure-loving alien like himself could get bored. "Status report," he barked at his crew as he sat down in the well-worn captain's chair. "We're on course through the Andromeda sector, sir," his navigations officer replied, estimating arrival at the Clomon Nebula in approximately 6 light florins. Zorbgax nodded, clicking his tongue in bored acknowledgement. He swiveled his chair around to see what the rest of his crew was up to. At one of the secondary control panels, he noticed Flembucks, one of 2 humans aboard. Zorbgax cocked his head curiously as he observed the young man. Flembucks was totally engrossed in the holographic screen in front of him, his eyes wide and mouth agape. He held some sort of hand controller and was fiercely mashing its buttons as he stared at the display. Strange noises emanated from his station, revving engines, explosions, shouts, and gunshots. "Flembucks," Zorbgax barked. "Just what in Zinyak's name are you doing?" The human jumped at the sound of his captain's voice. "Sorry, sir," he said. "Just passing the time with a little game. It's called Grand Theft Auto 5. Have you heard of it?" Zorbgax got up from his chair and slinked over to Flembux's station, his long, cat-like tail swishing behind him. He studied the chaotic scene unfolding on the screen, some kind of primitive ground vehicle being pursued through a primitive city as bullets whizzed by. "No, I have not," Zorbgax said. "Is this what humans do for fun?" He had always found humans rather strange, impetuous creatures. "Yeah, isn't it great?" Flembux grinned. "You can just do whatever you want in this game. Drive like crazy, get in shootouts, go on missions, and the whole city is totally open. You can explore anywhere. Here, let me start over so you can watch from the beginning." Flembux restarted the game as Zorbgax studied the screen closely, enraptured by the human's demonstration. He had never seen anything like this before. The colors were so vivid, the action so intense. He watched as Flembux, controlling a character named Trevor, stole an aircraft, robbed a bank, raced through the streets, and got into all manner of mayhem. "Incredible!" Zorbgax exclaimed. "The freedom, the recklessness, the destruction. Flembux, you must let me try this GT85 for myself." "Sure thing, Captain," Flembux said, handing over the controller. "Just be careful. It can get pretty chaotic. Not sure your alien brain can handle it." "Ha! We shall see about that." Zorbgax eagerly took the controller, his three-fingered hands gripping it awkwardly. In no time he was off, laughing maniacally as he drove on sidewalks, fired weapons wildly, and evaded the police. "This is amazing!" he cried out as he caused more mayhem. "The excitement, the rule-breaking freedom. Flembux, I must play more of this game immediately." Zorbgax was hooked. As he continued playing, he knew his boredom was now a thing of the past. This human game called Grand Theft Auto 5 was exactly what he needed to spice up his intergalactic adventures. Over the next few days, Zorbgax could not tear himself away from GTA 5. He spent every spare moment at Flembux's station, controller in hand, blowing up cars, stealing jets, and unleashing his pent-up energy into the chaotic fictional world. At first, Flembux was happy to see his captain so enthused, but soon Zorbgax's obsession became disruptive. He shirked his duties, waved off his first officer's reminders about ship inspections, and started falling asleep on the bridge, still clutching the controller. The rest of the crew began to complain. "Captain, we need you focused if we're going to successfully navigate the asteroid belt around Demona," the navigator urged one day. But Zorbgax just shooed him away, eyes glued to the screen. When they arrived at the resort planet Rigel 3 for shore leave, Zorbgax declined to join the shore excursions. "You go on without me. I'm in the middle of something," he told his puzzled crew. As they enjoyed the planet's lavish amenities, Zorbgax remained on board, playing GTA 5 and ordering food drones to sustain him. To Flembux, the worst part was seeing the drastic change in Zorbgax's personality. The once wise, discerning captain now laughed maniacally at juvenile pranks in the game, like throwing sticks of dynamite at random pedestrians. "Sir, I know it's fun, but some parts of the game are meant to be social commentary," Flembux tried explaining. "The violence is really a parody." "Nonsense, Flembux, violence is fun," Zorbgax cackled, blowing up another car. Flembux just sighed. Finally, one day, the first officer confronted the captain. "Sir, we're worried about you. You've become obsessed. We need our real captain back." Zorbgax glared angrily. "How dare you? This game has awakened my spirit. I've never felt more alive. Now leave at once before I vaporize you." Somberly, the crew realized an intervention was needed. Zorbgax's discipline had completely eroded. For the good of the ship, they had to separate him from the human game. That night, when Zorbgax was asleep, Flembux silently switched the game disc out for a peaceful farming simulation. The next day, when Zorbgax excitedly started up GTA 5, he was shocked to find himself harvesting alien vegetables. "What is this monstrosity? Flembux, explain yourself," he demanded. but the crew surrounded him, arms crossed. "Captain, we're staging an intervention." Zorbgax fumed as his crew tried explaining their intervention. How dare they come between him and his game? He needed to get back to the reckless freedom of GTA 5. "You've all lost your minds," he hissed. "I order you to give me back my game immediately." But the crew held firm. The first officer stepped forward. "Captain, please, hear us out. We're worried for your safety. You've become unhinged, shirking duties and threatening us over a silly game." "It's more than just a game," Zorbgax shouted. "You dense fool, you could never understand." He moved menacingly toward the game console, but his science officer blocked him. "Sir, we know you've been bored lately, but this obsession is unhealthy. We want to help you as your friends." The crew nodded, their eyes full of concern. Zorbgax paused. He had known some of these beings for centuries. They had been on countless adventures together. Looking around at their anxious faces, he felt a pang of remorse. Perhaps he had become a bit unbalanced. "You're right," he said softly. "My friends, I apologize. I let this human game consume me. Clearly, I have much to learn about their entertaining yet dangerous technologies." The crew smiled in relief. "We're just glad to have you back, sir," said the navigator. "What do you say we get back on course to the Procyon Nebula?" Zorbgax straightened up. "Make it so. I have much lost time to make up for. And please, keep that troublesome game disc locked away. I don't ever want to see it again." Days later, Zorbgax was piloting the ship confidently again when alarms suddenly blared. "Distress signal from mining colony Kivaria 5, shouted the communications officer. "They're under attack from the Nothlak Armorskin tribe." Zorbgax immediately jumped into action. "Helmsman, set intercept course. Weapons officer, charge the photon disruptors. Get us into that battle. It's time to have some real fun."